Dr. Stephen Greer is the man. You know, he's a surgeon who pioneered new ways to treat chronic wounds, and he's also a Wall Street analyst, and he's the author of Tony's Virus, and he is kind enough to join us. He was the man. This is the man. I say to you listening because you're family, and I love you for listening to the show, but Dr. Stephen Greer was so, talk about flattening the curve, he was so ahead of the curve, telling us exactly how to beat this Wuhan virus. Stephen, welcome back to the show, sir. Always great to have you with us this morning.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. You know, just a little thought is it's more important now than ever to remember 9/11 because a lot of people are trying to make you think it didn't happen, if you know what I mean. And we almost saw the lights canceled, and there's certain people who want to pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen, for saying that. That's why we were working with the Tunnel to Towers organization. They are reading the names. They weren't going to read the names, Dr. Greer. They weren't going to read the names. Why? Oh, COVID. They're reading the names. The Silla Foundation, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation is making them. They're reading the names and coming, and they weren't going to do the lights until the Tunnel to Towers Foundation stepped up.
Well, my apartment, the lights are literally outside the window, and I lived there for 20 years. And I was in the air from New York to Washington, D.C. when it was happening, and I landed, and then the second tower got hit. But anyway.
Wow. They had you land the plane, though. They brought the plane right down. Yeah, goodness gracious.
We got off at Reagan in D.C., and everyone was around the TV monitors because the first one had hit, and we didn't know what happened. And then when the second one hit, we all knew, this is terrorism. And so I went straight to George Washington Hospital to see if I could help, and then the Pentagon got hit on my way to George Washington. So I was just like, it was something else. But anyway.
Yeah, you know what, Dr. Greer, it's unbelievable, and we will not forget. We never forget. And I had this about this Wuhan virus. You were so ahead of the curve. You were talking about hydroxychloroquine early on. And again, this is just something that if you're in a war, or if you have cancer and you're in stage 4, God forbid, cancer, you want to do everything you possibly can to help. I mean, couldn't have tens of thousands of lives been saved if they listened to you? They listened to this radio show. You were the first person to say it, and then the president said, we do have some medicinals for this virus. I mean, I couldn't have tens of thousands of lives be saved if folks listened to you, Dr. Greer.
Well, yes, because most of the deaths occurred in centralized locations like bad hospitals in New York. And you recall I was the first one to say, hey, I wonder if these deaths are occurring because of a human error. Why did I know that so fast? Because I had worked as a resident moonlighting. I was doing research, and I was doing part-time work at these bad hospitals. And I knew the atrocious conditions under normal times, when they're just treating normal ailments. And I knew they weren't doing this right. And now we're seeing nurses come out and who are whistleblowing, saying they were doing atrocious things, like literally treating them like hospice patients. They weren't even attempting to treat them. And part of that problem was they weren't giving the medications early, and then they were improperly using ventilators. So, a lot of this could have been prevented. And the big one that could have the biggest massacre was the 11,000 people Cuomo killed by forcing infected elderly from the hospitals back into the nursing homes, and that caused 3 other states to copy him. So it's not just 11,000; it's many more that he's responsible for. And he's the man. So here's the man. He irresponsibly had sloppy hospitals under his control, killed nursing home patients, and now he's suddenly being our mother, our protector. And you can't eat indoors because it's not safe for you. Isn't that ironic that all of a sudden he cares so much about us?
Yeah, and again, are they overthinking that indoor dining is going to open end of the month in New York and only at 25%? Are we overthinking that? Is there indeed not so much a danger of catching this thing if we're all careful? We're all careful. If we go to indoor dining, you think they're making too much of this, Doctor?
Okay. Yeah. Well, first, their plan is just a joke. It's not going to help the restaurants at 25% and spread. So that's right. It's barely a plan at all. But there is no need for this social distancing mask. Tony Fauci and the World Health Organization, two credible people, have both said on the record that if you're not symptomatic and you happen to have the virus on you, you're not going to spread it. That's the way viruses work. Any sort of irregular influenza, any sort of airborne virus is never spread by asymptomatic people because you're not shedding the virus. So people who are out dining will not spread it if they're asymptomatic. There's no evidence that masks do a darn thing, as there's chart after chart of Israel, France, Spain, wherever they started the mask mandates, the curve of infections went up, not down, okay? And so all of these policies are unscientific. They're silly. They're just there to make you feel like, hey, we control you. You better wear our mask. And so they're ineffective, unnecessary, and asymptomatic people will not spread it, which is why kids should go back to school, and college kids could go back to school, and people can go back to work. And so it's just a farce, and they've destroyed a city. They've destroyed an industry, and everyone who works in the restaurants.
And doctor, what about the vaccine? The president says by November 1st, it looks like it's going to come out, and all the companies are working together. I mean, and also, but the thing I'm thinking about, Stephen, Dr. Greer, is if you take a Lyme disease vaccine, it's good. What, 30% of it works? Maybe this flu vaccine is good at 30, if not maybe 40% tops. Am I right? Is this vaccine going to be? Are they making too much of the vaccine itself?
Well, yes. What they don't want you to know is a vaccine is just a way to make your own body create antibodies. Or you can sort of get a vaccine by having the actual disease. In other words, you'll get antibodies if you've actually come across the germ or the virus. Right, well, what they don't want you to know is that many of us, 40% of us, who knows what the number is, have these antibodies in us, which means we are immune, which means we don't have to worry about this. And that's for two reasons. One is the coronavirus for this Wuhan thing is very similar to the common cold coronavirus. So we already have immune reactions based on other similar viruses. And also this actual virus itself that for the pandemic is very common. Most people are asymptomatic. So a lot of more people have it than we realize. And they've been trying this narrative, the far left stop Trumpers, to say antibodies are silly. They do not protect you. The antibodies immediately go away. It's all nonsense. So I wanted to tell you today that this is totally ignored, and it was a bit in the New England Journal right now this week is a hugely important study in Iceland. 30,000 people. They tested all the sick people who were thought to be sick with the virus. 90% of the people who they thought were sick had antibodies. Those antibodies did not go away. They stuck around. They conferred immunity. So it is true to say if you've had this and if you go get yourself tested, you can say, hey, I'm immune. Now, here's the problem. The tests we have in the United States are inadequate. You need to have a panel of 6 different tests. So I need to test you for 6 different antibodies, not just 1 or 2.
Wow.
And if you do it the way they did in this Iceland study with 6, and I'm working with NYU and other hospitals now to create this as we speak for my concierge patients. So if anyone wants to be antibody tested, give me a call. But so if you test for these 6 panels in this New England Journal, 91% of them will be positive. In other words, it's accurate 91% of the time. So antibodies are the key here. And which is also related to plasma therapy. Plasma is just antibodies from someone who's been sick. So plasma therapy works. We all have antibodies. And everything you've heard that poo-poos antibodies and says that they're silly, they're wrong. They're wrong. They're lying to you.
Hey, Dr. Stephen, where can we find you, Stephen, before we let you go? We got to get out of here time-wise. I could talk to you for 2 hours, my friend. Where can we find you, Dr. Greer? What's the best way to go online?
Oh, just go to GreerJournal.com.
Okay, GreerJournal.com. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for speaking the truth, my friend. And yes, sir.
Do you like my new book, Tony's Virus? It'll be out in about a month.
Okay, we're looking for it. Tony's Virus, Dr. Stephen Greer. Thank you, Stephen. Piscopo in the morning, 7:53.